one of the biggest trip ups that I've made so far, which I haven't even started yet, was trying to find where the puff pastry is even in the store. But all the ingredients that you need for this are 4 apples, puff pastries, some kind of preserve. I chose apricot because that's the one that the recipe calls for, but you can use in whatever you want, and cinnamon, and then a little bit of lemon juice, which I'm just going to use, not an actual lemon, just the concentration that we have. But the puff pastry was actually fairly difficult to find, so if you need to find it, at least in the Kroger that I went to, it's just right down the hallway where there's lots of biscuits and cheese and everything, and then there's usually like an ice cream aisle somewhere, and it's down towards wherever the ice cream and all the desserts are. So that's where I found it, and it took me a little too long to find it, but now that I know, I can make lots of desserts with puff pastries because I actually know where they are. Alright, so far all that I've done is make sure I have 4 of these beautiful apples, which I usually don't like apples, but when they're made in kind of a pie form, I do like them, so that's fine. And they're Aurora's favorite treat, so this is always fun, of course. But all I've done is clean the apples, and I cored all 4 of them out, which is really easy and really fun. They brown really quickly, so just be aware of that, but that's okay. So I've done that, and then I preheated my oven to 475, and then right now I'm going to make sure I cut the apples in half, do the slices, I'll show you those, and then we're going to soak them and cook the apples in the water, lime, lemon juice, whatever it is, concentrate, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to cut them, then we'll cook them. We'll see. Alright, so I cut the apples. I'm no professional chef or anything, but these are the little slices. This is just one of the apples. I just kind of did one. But you see how kind of thin they are. They're not perfect, but they make these little fans. They're all fairly even, which I know is part of the recipe, so it's smart to do that. I promise I washed my hands. But yeah, so we're going to start with that. We're going to do this a couple more times. And I cut the apple in half, and so this is like half of the apple with the 2 ends cut off. So we'll see. Another thing that I did was make sure that when I bought the puff pastry, I kind of just left it out while I got everything else ready for this recipe, because it needs to thaw out pretty much completely, which on the box it says takes about 40 minutes. So it kind of depends on where you store it, how hot your house is, that kind of idea. But it takes a good bit of time, and this recipe won't work unless the puff pastry is completely thawed out. So that's a good heads up to make sure this process can go on, because you can't just throw in the microwave or run it under hot water, because that would be gross. So this one has to actually thaw naturally, so make sure you definitely do that before you start anything else. That way you have plenty of time. When you buy puff pastry, it comes in a box, not a tube, a box, and you get 2 of these sheets. This is already thawed out, so it's a little malleable. But, so you get 2 of these sheets. You only need 1 for this recipe, but depending on how many you want to make, one of these recipes will make 6 roses, so if you make a lot of them, you'll need a couple sheets. But, so this is one. This is it all thawed out, so as you can see, you can kind of bend it around. The other one is hard as a rock, stiff as a board, however you want to say it. So, definitely make sure you thaw it out. We'll see. Okay, so I have no idea what this is called, but it's a little flour sifter thing. And this is what I've always used to cover any kind of surface I need for flour, which is what the recipe calls for. So make sure you cover the board of whatever you're rolling on for your puff pastry. But it doesn't say to use this sifter. I always just like to, because it makes the flour really soft and powdery, and that way you can really cover your board really well. Nothing will stick. Okay. So you have it all rolled out. And you put flour on the pan and on top of the dough. Woo! Let's drop the iPhone. On top of the dough, so that it doesn't fall and it doesn't stick, and that way you can actually like roll it out properly. And so this way you can roll it out to its full length and cut the right size of it, because they're going to be about 3 inches. And you need about 6 of them. So that's about how far you need it. So, woo. Okay. So right now, I laid all the dough out, and I actually moved to the counter because I didn't have enough space. I needed a lot bigger than I thought. And so I laid the dough out, and I trimmed some of the edges off. It was a little more difficult than I thought it was, because I didn't realize it needed to be a lot longer than wider. And so I had to kind of start over. But thankfully dough is forgiving, as my mom says, and we we're able to start over. But I made sure it's long enough, so you see the 18, so it's about 18 inches, because you need 3 inches each. So you'll see all the little markers is where it's going to be. And they say you need 6, so this should hold 12, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and then your 18 mark. And so this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pastry rolls that we're going to use to lay the apples out. And so after this, we're going to use the pizza cutter, which is the easiest thing. And I have this pile of dough here that I use just to make my edges straight. That way we can have good clean edges. And as I'm doing this, I made sure to put my apples in the microwave so they can cook for 3 minutes. And this way we can cut out, have nice clean sheets, and we'll roll the apples. Perfect. Okay, so kind of to start, you put some of the 3 tablespoons of preservative and then the 2 tablespoons of water. You do that first, and then you go through your huge bucket of apples that is so, I don't understand why they asked us to make so many apples, because this is a ton of apples that I'm not going to use, but that's fine, just so you know. So I'm just going to kind of find my thinnest ones, even if they're not perfect, because I'd rather them roll than look good. But, so we're going to do that. This is a good one. So this is a really good one to show an example how it's nice and flimsy and malleable. That's the kind that they're all supposed to be like. So let's find, maybe you'll find one more. So these are okay. Then you take your cinnamon and you kind of shake it on to taste. You don't have to use cinnamon, it's just kind of a taste thing if you like cinnamon. And you fold it over your apples. Start from one side, whichever you want. Whoops. And then you kind of just start to roll. This one's already struggling, but it's fine. We're going to power through. And there you go. And that's about it. Struggling, but it works. So we pulled them out. It was about 42 minutes when we pulled it out. About 23 minutes into it, we realized that it started to kind of smell burning. When I say we, I mean my mom, because she has a better nose than I do. So we kind of started smelling it burn, and it's because the tips of the apples were starting to really brown, which makes it look pretty, but doesn't taste good if the whole thing burns. So what we did is we literally just got a piece of tin foil and just laid it on top to make sure, and I pinched the edges just so that it would lay. My mom told me not to crunch it down completely, because then it would make condensation and make it moist, and we don't want that. And so I literally just got a piece of the tin foil, laid it right down, and then pinched the edges just so that it would stay. And then we poked holes just literally with my fork to give it a little bit of ventilation, but that helped a lot. So it helped cook for the rest of about the 20 minutes that it was there. And they actually turned out really well. The pan's a little hot because I just pulled them out, but they're really cute and they turned out really well. I may have complained that the apples weren't soft enough, but that's okay because they still look really pretty, and I think they're going to taste great. So it's not too bad. So we learned what we made our mistakes on, learned a couple of things, like to add the tinfoil to help it cook a little more smoothly. But at the end of the day, for a first round, it's not too bad. So I'll take it.